Hello, everyone. My name is Shwa, and I'm the host and founder of a podcast called Light Up with Shwa. I hope you are already watching it, or you haven't watched or listened to it, so maybe you will now. I have two beautiful people who I'm very grateful for. You know, I can talk for a long time about them, but let's see, what are we here for? I met them at an interfaith organization, and I believe this was meant to be for us to be together here. I'm really grateful for both of them and their company. These two amazing people bring a lot of rich tradition and a background which I have been learning, and there is a lot to learn. There are like volumes to it. It's not one book, and generations of amazing and rich inheritance that they both bring. And I would encourage you to go to our show notes, look at their profiles. If you need to connect with them, please do. If you have any questions, please do so. It will be on my website as well, lightupwithshwa.com. And I am on most of all the platforms that are available, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and others, and especially audio podcast as well, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, and all. So this is how we are going to begin today, just so that you have a structure in your mind that we are coming from three different faiths. Maxine will be talking from the Jewish point of view, or from that tradition. Shelton will be talking from the Christian background and point of view, and I will be talking from Islamic point of view as a Muslim. And we are not representing the whole, religion and the people. We are individuals here, and we will be talking from our perspectives. And if there is something that needs a reference, we will give a reference. So before I begin, I want to know, what thought came to your mind, Maxine?
This morning?
Yes, this morning. Yes.
Two things. One was, how am I going to eat my matzah this morning? And the second one was anticipation to see the two of you on screen together.
Oh,
so
nice.
2 thoughts.
Thank you. And Shelton?
For me, I have a 2-year-old she'll be 2 actually on Easter Sunday this week. And so my first thought was the thought I think every morning these days, which is, I wish I could sleep more.
And we didn't let you do that even today.
Wasn't you, don't worry.
But yes. Right. I know. Oh, well, so that's nice. And my thought was, first was like, I was so excited. And I was like, what am I wearing? And would our colors clash? And should I have told them what to wear? Because sometimes I do that. And then I'm like, and I think we are pretty well coordinated today. Nice solids. And then it was like, I don't want to be late. And then I was like, I'm so grateful. I'm finally, very excited. So these all different thoughts were overlapping my brain in the morning. So yes, Maxine, can you introduce yourself with your full name, who you are, and what do you do?
Okay. Maxine Lyons. I come from the Jewish tradition. Very happy and feel like that's a very foundational part of me. And I belong to what we call a non-Orthodox synagogue. Mm-hmm. It's very eclectic. It's Temple Beth Zion in Brookline. And it's non-Orthodox because we draw from many sources. Our liturgy and the prayers and the songs and the chants are foundationally Jewish, but we come from many different voices. Mm-hmm. And it's what I like about it is that we are encouraged to look at interpretations of scripture and prayers and to make our own and to bring our own. And that's very comfortable for me. That's very consistent with how I live my life. I also, for the past 8 years, have been a practicing member of a Buddhist meditation group. We meet weekly. Used to be in person, but for this last year, it's been online. Mm-hmm. We followed the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese monk, and he is a wonderful practitioner and teacher of mindful meditation. And it's mindful meditation in everyday life, in our behaviors, which is very consistent with Jewish practice called Musar, where we're looking at the particular qualities of our life that enhances us and our encounters. So the two streams flow together in a very nice way. So
Nice.
again, it's really a delight and an honor to be with my two very special friends.
Thank you.
Hi, it's wonderful to be with you both. I was just thinking inside myself how honored I am to have been invited into such a sacred space with two women I've grown to respect. My name is Shelton Oakley Hersey, and I identify as Christian. I more closely identify or like to refer to myself as a follower of Jesus. It harkens back to the days of the early church, in which Christian actually wasn't a term. And because organized religion actually is, Christianity was not an organized religion. So people who followed Jesus were people of the way. And people of the way, it was more about the way that you lived and the things that you believed and the ways that you were unified. And so I identify really closely with that. I also self-identify as interdenominational. And what I mean by that is there are thousands upon thousands of denominations or flavors or theologies or traditions or expressions of Christianity in the world. And I, in my life, have drunk very, very deeply from many of the traditions, whether Catholic or Pentecostal or Mennonite, Presbyterian. I've really, really gathered from many of those traditions, all that define themselves as Christian, and have experienced more closeness with God and more just truth, not just following one particular tradition, but drinking from many of them. The last thing I'll share is that I live in Boston with my family, and I am a spiritual director in the Christian tradition, and I am the program director of a interfaith, intercultural, and interracial youth leadership fellowship called the Dignity Project.
Wow, that's rich. We can have the whole episode on Dignity Project.
It's a great program. You both were a part of its inception in another form many years ago.
Thank you so much, Shelton and Maxine. And I think you all are looking good and very angelic like because of the lights that you both have. So we are talking about interfaith connections here, so that's really nice. I represent myself as a Muslim. I follow the Islamic tradition and Islam as a faith, and I am very much pleased to know that I have come so far in my education by meeting Maxine and Shelton. And Shelton, I actually am thinking this, what you just said, and the way and the follower, I think this is a very good way to learn and connect for others to your faith or to non-Muslim or non-Jewish faith, right? As a Christian faith, which you said, and it is so deep what you just said that I'm so inclined to talk about that, but we will do that some other time. But because the purpose here today is to represent ourselves as Maxine is from the Jewish tradition and you from the Christian tradition as we are labeling ourselves today, and me as a Muslim tradition. So I am very, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make one comment about our involvement with CMM,
Yeah, sure.
Ministries, which is the oldest interfaith organization in the Boston area.
Can you say what is CMM? What does it represent?
Yeah, well, it represents many different religious and non-religious groups, spiritual groups also. We emphasize that you didn't have to be part of an organized religion to be involved and to participate. And I think what's so interesting is that I guess I lived in a very sheltered Jewish environment. A lot of my friends socially were Jewish, and a lot of my work life as a gerontologist, as an adult educator, was working with so many different groups. And it gave me an exposure to different religions and different racial backgrounds. And it was so wonderful because even though one can be foundationally one thing, it gave me a receptivity to other faith groups. And it has enriched me, and it's actually enriched my Jewish life to do meditation and to meet people, good friends like you two, where we find points of definitely connection, but also different perspectives. And it's important that we evaluate and reflect on those different perspectives and to learn. And it's a real learning experience. So it's enriching and nourishing to me. I just wanted to make that point about.
I acknowledge the same thing.
I would agree.
Yes,
completely.
I concur with you, and yes, and that's how we are sitting here today, and that's what I wanted us to. I mean, we have had gatherings, but I want people to see that this is possible. What we are doing here, we can be from all three different upbringings, faiths and traditions, and all what we have learned, and see where we are. We are respectful of each other's existence. We are respectful of each other's traditions, and whatever you believe, I can differ, but I don't have to differ to the level that I have to hate you. So we need to learn about each other and enrich ourselves. As Maxine, you said, this is beautiful because that is what we are doing to each other. We are not converting each other. We are not proselytizing each other. We are enriching each other. And that is such a beautiful word. I always like enriching because it's rich and enriched. Yes, Maxine, say it.
So one last little thing. There's something that I like so much by a Jewish philosopher who called it panim lepanim, face to face. There's nothing like befriending someone face to face. And I sat around the table with the two of you for many years in different programs. And in one of Shelton's programs, her Interfaith program, I met a wonderful African-American woman who was the mother of one of her students, who is now in a special conversational circle with me for the last 3 years. So it's amazing that we, through our connections, it has deepened the work that we each have chosen to do.
Excellent. Excellent. Shelton, do you have anything to say on that or anything else?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I will just add, I'll echo what Maxine and Shwa, you've both shared in terms. I also love the word enrich. I think that there's something about the multiplication of my own faith that's happened in interfaith spaces that surprised me, if I'm honest. I don't think that I was taught to expect that or to go looking for that necessarily. And so, when you're not taught to expect or go looking for something, you don't really know what to expect. And I've been really deeply moved by how much more expansive my picture and image of God is. And in doing that, how much more I'm able to grasp God's love and God's truth. So it's been incredibly meaningful to me. And the only thing I would say as a last word is it can be nerve-wracking. and I think, it can be nerve-wracking for people. And I think if you don't know what to expect, you're kind of like, why am I having conversations with people of different religions, if not to convert them or if not to persuade them? And
So why did you have conversations with people?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, I think I entered in because there was a curiosity to me. And maybe we all share that, brought us to the table initially, that made curiosity can overdrive fear, which is a really wonderful thing. And so I think I have a natural curiosity of different perspectives and different people. But beyond that, it didn't take long before my curiosity opened up into a very clear reality that I was learning more deeply about myself and my tradition by learning about others and their traditions.
Excellent. Is that Maxine? I mean, we three of us are open to other faiths, and it's not that we are lost in our faith, because I think we are very grounded in our faith. So that is something I want to really stress on, that if you are grounded in your faith, then you are more open. Well, not necessarily, but you can be more open to other faiths, because you don't have to be afraid or be fearful of losing yourself the way usually it is. In fact, as both of you have been saying, you enrich your own existence. And in fact, don't you think that you go and look for more, you explore more and you look for more, you try to answer your questions that come up when you meet or learn about other faiths and traditions?
Well, I think the word grounded is very good, because we are trees. Our roots are
in the ground comfortably and securely. And then we're branches and we're branching out. And it reminded me of a book that I read by a woman, Estelle Frankel, who is a very Jewish and also Buddhist and also a psychological approach to life. She calls it the wisdom of the unknown. And as you were talking, Shelton, about curiosity and surprise, to go, and we're adventurers, we're spiritual seekers, and we're looking for the unknowns, and we find there are points that I've sometimes not understood about different religions. But when you meet a person who is practicing it, you see it through their eyes. And to see life someone else's eyes is a very important way to be a human being, because often we go by a philosophy or a theology, and I don't get that, or I don't agree with that. But if you sit around the table and you're looking at each other's eyes as we are now, that creates sacred space. And that is the appeal to me of that kind of space. It doesn't have to be in my synagogue. It can be right here. And that's what I value.
Excellent. Shelton, yeah. Thank you, Maxine, Shelton. I mean, I resonate with that. I echo your thoughts. And especially nowadays in the pandemic, that Muslims had to readjust themselves, and we are not going on Fridays for Jummah prayers, Friday prayers, and we are creating our Jummahs at home, and all that is going on. Although there are online streaming going on for Jummah, but obviously it's a big part of Muslim tradition and Muslim life to be there on Jummah, Friday prayers. But I think what you just said, Maxine, that being with people who are representing, whether they are doing Jummah or Sunday prayers or Saturday or Friday Shabbat, it is to be with them, and that is what the beauty is. I think that's where we learn more, and to respect and to be civilized. And I think we need to be really preaching that more than our faiths and traditions, to be kind, to be there for one another. Doesn't matter who you are, but in humanity, and be kind and kind and kind and gentle, and go beyond our perspectives that might not resonate with the human values, I think, if they are differing. I think we need to challenge those, even if we were brought up with that thought process, or that upbringing was part of our system in some form or shape.
You brought up one other thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please. That's how it is. That's what I do.
There is a lot of hatred when there is Islamophobia and there is anti-Semitism, and there are wanton killings. I have had, when there were bombings in the church, in the synagogue. I had so many of my interfaith friends who wrote me and said, "I am with you. I stand with you. I cry with you." And that's really meaningful to me.
Yep.
And it's the same thing that I have had rabbis, my rabbi and other rabbis around the country, who are talking about Islamophobia, that these are our brothers, that we are all monotheistic faith practitioners, and we need to support each other. And it's meaningful to me when there have been anti-Semitism and activities happening, that I feel the support from my interfaith friends. And I get Passover greetings, and I send my greetings and my wishes for Ramadan. And I think that's really important. I would never have thought I would do that 10, 12 years ago. But this last decade has been filled with the awareness not only of my Passover, but of your Easter and your Ramadan coming up.
Exactly.
And that's also enriching.
So, Shelton, do you want to keep us on the structure and the frame that we were on about our discussion today?
I think I was going to talk about spring. And
yes, please. Let's do that.
Yes, okay. Yes, Maxine, please. Yeah, take us into Passover, especially since it's been celebrated. So
do you want to say the dates also, Maxine? The Passover.
2 Singers. It started on March 27th on Saturday. At the end of Shabbat, we went right into the beginning of the holy day of Passover. And the value of Passover coming in the spring is very rich. It offers many reasons to celebrate the growth in the life re-emerging in the ground, in nature. But it's also in the Jewish tradition, Passover is, we are required to retell the story of the Exodus, of leaving Egypt. And Egypt, the word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim, and in the middle of that word is the word sar, that there was narrowness and constriction through the bondage and slavery. And we pushed through that for the physical liberation to become a people. And I think that's really important, not just for the physical liberation, but part of our awareness today in contemporary Jewish thought that I believe in is that our liberation rests on all people being liberated. And our work is not done until we bring the possibility of liberation to all peoples. And that's what happens in the springtime. And just very quickly, some of the meaningful practice of the season is cleansing. We cleanse our houses of the leavened bread. Also, the internal dwelling. We think about reflecting on what does this holiday mean. We have symbolic foods that help us with that. Everyone knows about matzah and things like that. But the most important commandment is the obligation to see ourselves as if we personally left Egypt, and to teach that to our children and to our grandchildren. And with that, we are responsible for adding to the healing of the world. And we are always in the process of being liberated. None of us are liberated. We are all in the process of becoming that until we reach redemption. So I have finished mine, and Shelton, I don't know what the season means to you.
So our season actually in the Christian tradition starts in winter. And I love that you brought up, the physical nature of seasons, even though obviously northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere and wherever you are, it can look very different. But for me, it has deep meaning, and even maybe more so since living in New England. So we start with the season of Lent. And Lent begins, it's marked by a day called Ash Wednesday. And it happens in February, some mid-February. I won't give a specific date, it changes every year.
Yes.
And so on that day, your liturgical calendar comes full circle. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Palm Sunday, because that comes after Lent. But there's palm branches that are burned from the year before, and the ashes are kept all year long. Okay. And you use the same ashes from the palms from the year before to take oil and ash and to inscribe a cross. And really this was the physical, bold way that people actually in the early church who were persecuted in the Roman Empire could express that they were followers of the way, that they were followers of Christ, that they believed in a crucified Messiah that was resurrected and came again and represented a puncturing, a death of death, as we call it. But before we get to that place, we have 40 days of Lent, and the 40 days of Lent are a time of fasting, a time of remembering, a time of becoming really in touch with our humility and with our fragility and our humanity. So when a pastor, a priest, or a layperson puts the ashes on their forehead, they'll say something like, "To dust you came, and to dust you will return." And so this memory of like we are human first. We're fragile. We are not God. We must humble ourselves and realize that like it is not always the way of humanity is sometimes a dark way, and sometimes leads us into dark nights of the soul. And so really the color that I would give Lent is kind of a really deep midnight blue. If I was to give the whole season a color, like a midnight blue of remembrance. And so it's interesting how, at least in New England, it mirrors the seasons of kind of like, it's dark, it gets a little bit lighter as you get closer to Holy Week. And so the progression of the 40 days, you're in this place of remembrance and this place of fragility and humanity and humility. And then after the 40 days, 40 is a really significant number in both the Hebrew scriptures, maybe in the Quran
Islam too. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So in all of our faiths, Abrahamic traditions, 40 is a really important number. And so 40 days completes, and this past Sunday, we celebrated Palm Sunday, and this was what we call the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. But what's profound about it is it carries that hint of Lent, because Jesus doesn't come as royalty, and Jesus doesn't come triumphantly entering into Jerusalem in this loud, boisterous, kind of materially rich way. No, he comes on a donkey. He comes on the lowliest of animals, on, the animal that carried, our food, and he gets on top of it, and people, rather than laying red carpets or fabric, they lay palm branches out. And this is kind of the walkway in which Jesus enters into Jerusalem. And from that point, you have like this incredible plot line that's moving very quickly and swiftly. And this whole week that we're in right now, we call Holy Week. And so our liturgical calendar takes us through Maundy Thursday, which is on Thursday night. We take communion, which is a time for a meal, a time for remembering, because Jesus had his Last Supper with his disciples, his brothers, if you will, in a quiet room set apart where they could really fellowship and be with one another. And then Good Friday is the day that Jesus is crucified. It's always interesting to people in interfaith spaces. They're like, why do you call it Good Friday? It's this dark, if I gave it a color, it would be black. It's really dark. And we're really encouraged in our faith to not leap to Easter right away, but to really stay in the suffering, and to stay and to remain in the discomfort in some ways that Jesus suffered, endured, and that so many suffer and endure all across our world and throughout the ages. And so we stay there, and and most Christians at that point in time, it was a very small group, they went into hiding because they were scared. And when Jesus died, they thought, we believed wrong. Like they said he would live forever, and he didn't. So they went into hiding, and they were scared. And then on Easter morning, they found out that they rolled the tomb away, and Angel Gabriel declared that Jesus was living and had risen, and various prophecies were fulfilled. And the women, which I love, on Easter morning were the first to hear. And they're the ones who believed right away, and they're the ones who demonstrated faith and came. And there are some traditions, this is the last thing I'll share, I love it, in the Greek Orthodox or the Anglican tradition, they actually start their Easter morning at midnight on Saturday. And they have a service that rises with the sun. And so you actually get to see the progression from darkness to light.
Yes.
And then you celebrate that Easter has happened and that death has been put to death.
Yeah. Thank you. Wonderful. Very nice. I saw so much commonality in your story, and I am not going to go into detail. I think we need to do something about it, because this will be a very good educational piece for everybody to learn from. So I think we would, in the interest of time, I would say a little bit about Ramadan now, and then we will go into our meditation a bit. So Ramadan is just on the corner to us. It's overlapping. The season is the same. The Holy Week is here, and Ramadan is starting on the 13th from the calculation method, April 13th.